Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Adamoose, and today in this series called In Depth, I'm going to be breaking down everything that you need to know about Kayn Jungle.
The killer will remain.
Kayn is a mobile carry jungler with an adaptive playstyle due to his two different forms. He has a pretty high skill cap, and is an amazing pick to add into your pool to take your jungling game to the next level. If you enjoy the content, it really helps me out if you could leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel to help your boy out with the YouTube algorithm. If you want to talk with me and other members in the community, be sure to join the Discord link that's in the description. Hope you guys can learn something. Enjoy the video. Quickly before we hop into the content, I want to introduce the sponsor of today's video, League Unleashed. League Unleashed is a coaching service that helps players of any skill level quickly evolve their game to the next level and reach their goals. They have a roster of very high elo coaches to choose from, which will help you identify your mistakes, figure out where you're stuck, and greatly speed up your learning curve. They also offer a free coaching session to anyone who's serious about improving. Simply click the link in the description to go to their site, fill in your info, and schedule your first lesson. If you want to get a feel for their service, I highly recommend checking out their YouTube channel where they post educational content and coaching VODs as well. I've learned a lot about jungling from them, and I highly recommend you guys give them a go. If you do check them out and enjoy, be sure to tell them I sent you. It really helps to support my channel. Now let's hop right into Kayn's abilities. Kayn's passive is called the Darkened Scythe. Enemy champions drop orbs for each instance of damage they receive from Kayn, and every time he scores a takedown against them. Melee champions drop red orbs, and ranged champions will drop blue orbs. Red orbs grant progression towards Rost, the red form, while blue orbs do so for the blue form Shadow Assassin. Once the bar is filled, Kayn can return to the summoning platform and transform to the selected form, or wait 4 minutes until the other one becomes available, reduced by 5 seconds for each collected orb of that type after that. The transformation type is decided based on the highest amount of damage dealt to either melee or ranged champions. When transformed to the red form Rost, Kayn gains healing from all physical damage dealt to enemy champions with his abilities. For the blue form Shadow Assassin, if Kayn has been out of combat for over 8 seconds or he casts his R, he gains a percentage of damage dealt against champions as bonus magic damage, lasting for 3 seconds. This is the core of Kayn's identity, which gives him some playstyle flexibility based on the enemy team comp and your desired goal. It also gives you an incentive to get into combat early on to gain orbs and progress towards your form. Kayn's Q is called Reaping Slash. Kayn dashes in the target direction, dealing physical damage to enemies he passes through before swinging his scythe, dealing the same damage to surrounding enemies. Both instances of Reaping Slash deal bonus magic damage against minions and monsters. In addition, the dash speed also scales with Kayn's total movement speed. This is Kayn's main DPS tool that provides tons of dueling power and fast clearing potential. Using this against walls when clearing will speed up the animation, increasing efficiency. When transformed to his red form Rost, Reaping Slash's damage is modified to deal bonus physical damage based on the target's maximum health, allowing him to completely shred high HP targets. Kayn's W is called Blade's Reach. Kayn performs an upward sweep with his scythe in the target direction, dealing physical damage to all enemies within a line and slowing them by 90%, decaying over 1.5 seconds. You can also cast W while in terrain with E, making it a great poking tool without needing to commit to fights. When transformed to Shadow Assassin, Blade's Reach's range is increased by 200. Additionally, Kayn conjures a living shadow at the casting position to perform the sweep, reducing the ability's cast time to 0. This allows blue Kayn to quickly go in and out, poking with W without the usual cast time, which locks him in place, making him vulnerable. When transformed to Rost, Blade's Reach also knocks up enemies hit for 1 second, giving him some nice utility, especially in close range fights. Kayn's E is called Shadow Step. Kayn gains 40% bonus total movement speed, ghosting and gaining the ability to ignore terrain collision for a duration. If Kayn has been in combat with enemy champions within the last 3 seconds, Shadow Step will instead last 1.5 seconds. This effect cannot remain active out of terrain for longer than 1.5 seconds, and will cancel immediately if Kayn performs a basic attack or becomes immobilized. Kayn also heals himself upon moving through terrain for the first time, and he gains unobstructed vision while inside. When transformed to Shadow Assassin, Shadow Step's cooldown is reduced to 8 seconds at all ranks. Additionally, Kayn gains 100% slow resist, and upon entering terrain, the bonus total movement speed is increased to 80% for the remaining duration. This is one of the strongest mobility tools in the game, which allows Kayn to move across the map quickly, take creative gank paths through walls, and even to escape close call situations with good positioning. In my opinion, this is Kayn's most difficult ability to master and will make a huge difference in your results with some practice. Kayn's ultimate is called Umbral Trespass. Passively, Kayn marks enemy champions he damaged in the last 3.15 seconds. When activated, Kayn vanishes and dashes to a marked enemy champion. Upon arrival, he channels up to 2.5 seconds, attaching to the target and revealing them. You can then recast after 0.75 seconds during the channel, and does so automatically if the channel ends without reactivation. When recast, Kayn deals physical damage to the target and dashes out from their body in the target direction, becoming targetable again. When you're the Shadow Assassin, Umbral Trespass gains up to 200 bonus cast and emerge range. Additionally, emerging will reset the Darkened Scythe's cooldown. This increases Blue Kayn's assassination potential and adds to his already very slippery playstyle. When transformed to Rost, Umbral Trespass is modified to deal bonus physical damage and heal based on the target's maximum health. This empowers Red Kayn's tank killing, sustain identity, letting him shred through high health targets and sustain up in scrappy fights, buying time for his cooldowns to come back up. For ability maxing, Kayn maxes Q first, W second, and E third in all games. For skill order, Q level 1, E level 2, and either W level 3 when looking to make plays early or to defend invades, or a second point into Q for the fastest full clear that we'll discuss later on. Now let's jump right into Kayn's best rune setups for Season 12. Since Kayn has two forms with very different playstyles, his rune choices will also vary depending on the game. Conquer is going to be your go-to tank killing and sustained damage keystone, mainly used when choosing Red Kayn. Triumph, Legend Alacrity for DPS, Legend Tenacity against CC, and usually Last Stand is going to be your go-to precision page. For secondaries, Inspiration with Magical Footwear and Cosmic Insight, Domination with Eyeball Collection and Ingenious Hunter, or Resolve with Conditioning and Revitalize for a tankier setup. Now if you're against multiple range champions and squishies, First Strike and Dark Harvest are going to be the go-to choices for Shadow Assassin Kayn. When looking at the top Blue Kayn players, First Strike is by far the most common option. It not only provides great one-shot potential, but it also grants Kayn with some extra gold income. For secondaries, Domination with Eyeball Collection and Ingenious Hunter is the most common choice, while Sorcery with Absolute Focus and Gathering Storm is a greedier setup for max damage. Lastly would be Dark Harvest, which is the other burst keystone option. Although much less consistent, it can still work, especially in lower elos, when picking up multiple stacks. To close out the Domination tree, Sudden Impact, Eyeball Collection, and either Ravenous, Ingenious, or Relentless Hunter are going to be your go-to choices. For secondary, both the Inspiration and Sorcery pages mentioned earlier will be the go-tos. For rune shards, Kayn's usual setup is double adaptive damage and either armor or magic resist depending on your jungle matchup. I also see some top players running attack speed with Rost, so to be honest, it mainly depends on what you prefer. Now that we've got Kayn's rune pages down, let's go over his best item builds. For starters, Blue Smite is going to be a fantastic choice for Shadow Assassin, helping with locking down targets and also giving yourself a free mark for your ult. Red Smite is also a strong dueling option, mainly used when going Rost, helping to fight heavy melee bruiser team comps. It's also important to mention that since Manamune is such a strong item for the more damage-centric builds, picking up a tier on your first couple backs is very important in those situations. For boots, Ionian Boots of Lucidity are by far the most common choice for Blue Kayn, while plated steel caps and Merc Treads are great options to counter heavy AD and CC teams for Red Kayn. For mythics, Prowler's Claw is the most consistent choice for Shadow Assassin, while Gore Drinker is by far the strongest option for Rost. Although Duskblade and Eclipse see some play as well, I don't really recommend them over the other two. You can also run Gore Drinker with Blue Kayn, which is a middle ground build that still deals big damage while providing you with some extra sustain. When it comes to your core items, we'll discuss each distinct build separately. For the Shadow Assassin lethality build, Manamune, Yomu's Ghostblade, Umbral Glaive, Cyrilda's Grudge, Serpent's Fang, and Edge of Night are the main choices. Now for Rost and the beefier build, Black Cleaver, Death's Dance, Mauve Malmortius, GA, and Spirit Visage are going to be the strongest options. To close out the items section, it's extremely important to remember that most times you'll need to decide both your form, runes, and item build before the game even starts. This means that you'll need to examine the enemy team comp and have a flexible mindset if you really want to have success. There's also a build which is considered Purple Kayn, which means mixing different aspects of both build setups together. Learning when to go each build comes with time, but will make a huge difference when mastering Kayn. Now let's get right into Kayn's general jungle strategy and pathing. Since Kayn's main strength early on is his clear speeds, learning how to do so effectively is extremely important. First is learning how to buffer his Q's dash time by hugging a wall. This will allow you to deal both instances of damage at the same time and greatly speed up your clears. On the topic of efficiency, Kayn's E is a fantastic tool to get from camp to camp much quicker once you learn the best routes. If your E is going to wear out by being outside of terrain for too long, keep in mind that you can also use Q to gain even more distance and get to the next instance of terrain to keep your E active. Now where it gets really tricky is understanding Kayn's jungle strategy. Kayn is rather weak early on due to his reliance on his forms to power spike. Since Kayn farms very quickly, but also needs to fight enemy champions to get orbs, finding a balance between fighting and farming is going to be the main challenge when learning Kayn. In general, full clearing your camps on cooldown is still going to be the most consistent option, since this will set you up for an extremely strong mid and late game. This also goes for counter jungling, since Kayn is extremely mobile and can snag camps and escape very easily, especially raptors. I see too many new Kayn players permanently forcing fights and ganks while falling extremely far behind. Your goal should be to farm as much as possible while looking for opportunities in your downtime so you can progress towards your form. Look for situations where you have a numbers advantage or where enemies are out of position so that you can take advantage. Just like other junglers, understanding which lanes you want to play around is extremely important. In Kayn's case though, you also need to think about what form you want to get in that game, since playing around melee or ranged champions and fighting them will dictate which form you get first. This is something to keep in mind, but not to force, since getting a lead even when you're making progress towards the wrong form is still worth. Lastly would be saving your W when ganking, since this ability is easily dodged. Your best bet is going to be wrapping behind enemies, applying red buff and sticking to them with Qs, then once the enemy burns flash or their dash, using your W for a follow-up slow. Now let's discuss Kayn's actual jungle routes. First things first is the most common full clear route, which can be done in multiple ways. You can start on either side of the map, depending on which lane you want to path towards. You either want to start on one of your buffs with a leash, raptors for a solo start on red side, or wolves for a solo start on blue side. The benefit of starting leashless is to hide your starting position, making it more difficult to get punished early. You then fully clear towards your desired side, putting a second point into Q at level 3, and finishing before Scuttle spawns at 315 if you've mastered your clear. Now if you want to make a play early, the most common route is the 1 quadrant 3 camp clear into gank or invade depending on the situation. This simply means fully clearing 1 quadrant of your jungle, then going for a play, ideally mid lane if you can, then continuing your full clear. This is a great middle ground since you won't fall too far behind in CS while also pressuring enemy lanes if they're overextended or with no sums. If you're looking to gank bot or top, you must make sure this is a good decision since not getting a kill means you'll be very far behind. Executing the early game properly on Kayn is definitely the hardest thing to do, so keeping all these factors in mind when going into each game will greatly speed up your learning curve and lead to success. Kayn's biggest weakness is definitely that since he relies on his form to become powerful, he can be very hit or miss depending on the early game. Although Kayn's transformations are both very strong, not getting those early orbs and falling behind can make you extremely useless. This is why strong duelists such as Graves, Rek'Sai, Kindred, and Master Yi are all tough matchups since they can easily kill you and bully you out of your jungle. This gets even harder when fighting mobile champions since they can easily dodge your W's damage and cut you out with ease. Next is how Shadow Assassin starts falling off in the later stages. Since you rely on one-shotting isolated squishies, late game teamfights where enemies are grouped and start buying defensive items makes your job extremely difficult. Rost can also struggle into team comps with tons of mobility and anti-heal, making you much less effective. Both forms are countered by peel and CC, so finding creative angles to flank or pick enemies off is going to be the name of the game if you want to succeed. Lastly is that Kayn actually has a very high skill cap and requires tons of game knowledge to play to his maximum potential. Learning when to go each form, what builds to run, and at what points you can start playing aggressive comes with time, but will be the biggest factor when trying to carry games. And finally, let's discuss what makes Kayn such a powerful pick in the jungle. First is that he has an extremely flexible playstyle that can be changed depending on what is needed for the current game. A good Kayn player will always find a way to be useful, which makes him a great pick to main. Kayn is also extremely mobile, which gives him so many opportunities when piloted correctly. This is why Kayn thrives against immobile champions such as Amumu, Lilia, Viego, and Karthus, since he can easily kite them out and avoid any all-in that does not favor him. Next is how Shadow Assassin is fantastic for 1v9ing games due to his high mobility, one-shot potential, and great poke. You can easily weave in and out, chunking enemies and picking off squishies who are alone, giving your team the numbers advantage. If you're against multiple melee bruisers and tanks, Rost is an absolute nightmare to deal with. He provides great teamfighting damage and absurd amounts of sustain and utility, which makes him one of the strongest fighters in the late game. This is why understanding the ins and outs of each form will give you a massive edge, since you can easily change your game plan depending on what gives you the highest chance of winning the current match. Kayn is a mobile carry jungler who has massive upsides when played correctly. He has multiple playstyles and can act as a completely different champ from game to game. If you're looking for a fun, high skill cap jungler who really does have unlimited options to carry games, Kayn is definitely the pick for you. That will do it for my Season 12 in-depth guide on Kayn Jungle. If you want to support my content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep up with my weekly uploads. Most people who watch are not subbed, and your support really helps my channel grow. If you're looking to add more jungle champs to your pool, make sure to check out the rest of my in-depth series to find more guides just like this one. While you're at it, make sure to also check out League Unleashed's website and YouTube channel. You definitely will not regret it. With all that being said, thanks again for watching. Until the next video, peace out.